Hi guys, welcome to Nine Links. Just want to mention one more time, I decided to get rid of the introduction screen, introduction part of the video. Just jump straight into the topic, what we're going to do today. Anyway, I'm going to show you this after potting of, repotting of, well, technically pot up. Not a total repotting, but I have a very, what should I say, picky about term I use on when it comes to repotting. When most people mention repotting, oh, okay, you say, okay, the plant is moving into a new pot. I usually say, if I move the plant into a new pot and I clean up all the previous potting mix and leave the plant bare roots and then put it into a new pot that's bigger than the previous pots and with a new potting mix, yes, I call that very rigorous repotting. That's true repotting. But since I just change the pot size diagonally, not diagonally, horizontally or vertically. So I call it pot up, means just an upgrade. You don't really disturb the plant's roots that much. So you basically give it a little upgrade. That way you don't disturb the root that much and the plant will start growing faster. Now of course there are downsides to that. It's that if the plant roots, big if, the plant roots are diseased or rotten, then you definitely want to do a clean repotting, a rigorous repotting. Get rid of old mix, wash the roots, clean the roots, cut off the rotten ones, and then potting into a new mix and a new pot. Now that's its way to do it when you have a diseased plant. Since I have a healthy plant, I typically don't want to do that kind of a step. So I just do a pot up. And this is Chinese Perfume Tree, that's what they call it. Or you can call it Algaia Odorata. Right here, after repot, I put it into this pot. This pot used to belong to the sweet olive, but that one's dead. But anyway, so we put it into this, and as you can see on my previous pot, you'll see it's coming up. I'll show you how the repot process, pot up process went. And this one was a little tilted, so when I pot in this one, it was like leaning like this in the pot. So I pot in the center to make sure I keep it straight. And this pot should give it another growth of 3 or 4 years. Since this plant is not that aggressive when it comes to growth roots down there, not like some other plants. Okay, now let's go get into repot and I'll show you what to do. Today I'm going to show you, we're going to repot the Chinese Perfume Tree, Algaia Odorata. The reason I will need to repot this is because of a spring is coming up. So it's getting to March, April, the weather is going to get warmer, and the best time to pot any plants usually at the early spring. Another thing I want to repot this is the pots. This old pot, I've been using it for quite a few plants already. As you can see, there are a lot of salt buildups, and look on the side. I could probably clean those off, but since I'm gonna repot it and this pot's getting old too, so might as well get rid of it. So we're gonna move over to this pot right here. And also, it's probably root bound already, so it's time to do to pot up into a newer, bigger pot. So as you can see, this one it's kind of dirty too. It's all weared out, and if you look closer, the clays and stuff are kind of corroded by the salt and stuff. All right. So how we're gonna repot is that we're gonna first get the potting mix ready. These two potting mix are the one that I use for cuttings and stuff, and the cutting was for jasmines. Didn't go too well, so the potting mix still good, just that the cuttings are dead. So throw those away, but I typically don't reuse my potting mix. Unless something like this, it's not a big deal. It's just one small cutting, so it's not like a huge plant and died of disease or something. Then you don't want to reuse the potting mix because of this bacteria and stuff still remain in there. Virus could get into a new plant, so most of the time you just throw those potting mix away. For this case, for my case, these two are only for cuttings, and cutting didn't do so well, so it died. So the potting mix still okay. So to be safe, so what I did is I actually pour hydrogen peroxide on both of them to sterilize it, and now they're dried up, so good to be reused again. And it's have a peat moss and perlite and vermiculite, and also my favorite sphagnum moss. These two potting mix already well mixed with a balanced ratio already. So we're gonna use probably with this size of pot, probably use one of these, and then the remaining potting mix from that plant. All right. Okay. Now, first thing first, I'm probably gonna throw dump the old potting mix into this tray, just to separate them, make sure there's no big chunk stay together. Okay. All right. Let's get to it. Okay. First couple things I want to point out, as you guys know, I typically would like to put sphagnum moss on the below the bottom of the pot to hold the water in and hold the potting mix from escaping. Over time, watering can cause potting mix to escape from the bottom. So these are for the bottoms only. And also one thing I want to show you guys, I actually did this one about 5 days ago. I poured hydrogen peroxide in there. On the top layer, like for this one, you can see it's very, very dry. From the bottom portion of the potting mix, you can see it's still kind of a dark, moist. It's not wet. It's still a little bit moisture in the bottom. So it's still pretty moist. So that shows you that when you water your plants, don't judge by the top layer. You usually poke in a little bit to see before you start watering. See, once I flip the top layer, you can see it's still moist in the below layers. So just something to point out. It's interesting to see. And one more advice: always wear a glove, because these peat moss, they can get into your fingernails and stuff. Cleaning it afterward will be a pain in the butt, but having a glove is very handy. So what you're doing right now, just crumble them up so there's no big piece or smaller piece. They stick together. When you put the potting mix inside, it'll be a lot easier. Okay, so we're gonna get these sphagnum moss out of the top real quick. Put it over here. And we're eventually going to reuse these sphagnum moss on top of the new in a new pot too. So move this. These are New Zealand premium sphagnum moss. If you use it right, it could last you up to 10 years. So they are very, very good at getting air and also providing, what should I say, providing good way to hold water and won't suffocate your roots. Okay, and now we got most of them out, and the rest of them just probably hold on by the plant roots. We don't want to yank more out. These just sitting on top. So now we'll just flip them over like that. Poke the bottom. You see my finger over here, and just slowly force it out. And you can see the vermiculite on the bottom. And as you can see, the roots are very healthy. You see the roots all going around. So this one is not that heavily root bounded, but nonetheless, as you can see, there are a lot of vermiculites coming out. I probably back then put too much on there. Okay, as you can see, the roots going. See, this they're a little rotted on the end, but overall they are very healthy. Light brown. Chinese perfume trees roots are not supposed to be like white champaga or jasmine, really white. These are the healthy roots. And as you can see, more of the vermiculite starting to fall out. It's fine. Let it fall out. And since this is a pot up, remember I told you guys about, I don't typically like to do total repotting, where I get all the previous odor mix out and then putting get all odor mix out and just clean the roots and then put it into a new pot. I typically like to do this. The roots is already formed. This old potting mix is not going to hurt. There's a lot of sphagnum moss inside, which will last up 10 more years. You know, well, I mean, 8 more years. I already used it 2 years already. So we're just going to move it to a new pot like this. Just keep it like this. We are not going to disturb anymore on the root system, because every time when you disturb plant roots, you are creating more stress to the plants. Now, these are the potting mix I got out from the cutting pots. So we're going to use it's already pre-mixed already, so why go through all the work again? So as you can see, sphagnum moss on the bottom. We're going to fill it in. Fill it in. That's about right. Maybe one more handful. Okay, that's about right. And now we're going to sit this part in. You see, it's fitting pretty nicely, because the diameter of this pot's roughly about the same. Maybe a little big, but then we are focused on getting a new length on the bottom, so it'll get more growth on the bottom as well. So put this in, press it down a little bit, so it'll sit on top of the new potting mix. And the good thing is, since it's the same diameter, you see that? I don't even have to fill it on the sides. So I'm just going to press it in a little bit, make sure it gets all the way down. This repotting is a lot easier than I thought. So we're not really expanded horizontally. We're giving it more room to grow vertically. So it's like I say again, I'm not really doing a very rigorous repotting where I clean the roots and everything. That way I don't disturb the plant that much. So now let me press it a little. Don't forcefully pressing it down. Just, you can tell if there are more room in the bottom. And once it fit in pretty nicely. One thing I do want to mention again is that when you do a rigorous repot on the plant, clean the roots, get rid of the old potting mix, it stressed the plant out a lot. And some of the microbes in the old potting mix are gone, so it will take plant a lot longer time to adjust to the new pot. Yes, when you do it that way, total repot, you give plant a fresh start. I only do those when the plant suffer from disease or root rots. It's a mess down there, so I want to get rid of all the potting mix and start out fresh. But this plant's healthy. It just need a bigger pot, either horizontally or vertically, so give it more room to grow. So this pot will work, and plus the other pot's wearing out. And as you can see earlier, I showed you this is not actually that heavily root bounded to the pot yet, so it's not that bad. So I could wait at least 2 more years maybe to repot this, but now this pot's wearing out, just might as well switch over in spring too. So this pot, for this plant, I would say give it about 3 more years before another repot. So it's fine. And if you see my previous video on like cymbidiums and stuff, where you can see it's actually really root bounded. The whole entire bottom section is filled with the roots. Those are heavily root bounded. You need to change them. But the different plants grow the roots differently. This one so far has been doing very well, and so it's springtime. So give it a little repot. Now the general rule of how much potting mix you fill it up to, usually leave about this much away from the top. So you don't want to fill it all the way to the top. When you water it, the water will go off. When you water it, the water will stay in and then drain in down to the pot. So that's what you want. Now we're going to put these sphagnum moss back on top again. For those of you who don't know me, the sphagnum moss, I'm very much big fan of sphagnum moss, especially New Zealand premium sphagnum moss. Why? It holds the moist very well, and also it dries up quickly on top. And believe it or not, ever since I started using the New Zealand sphagnum moss for repotting, on, like, for not repotting, for the potting on the top layer of the plant, I have seen dramatically reduction in these fungus gnats infestation. Fungus gnat, when they want to find place to lay eggs, they usually look at the topsoil of the potting mix. If it's wet, organic, they love it. They lay eggs in there, and fungus gnat larvae, they'll eat the roots and some plant roots, and basically just cause plants to have a little bit of stress. And having those fungus gnats flying around you, it's not fun. But with sphagnum moss on top, they dry out really quick, so that's why it's when the fungus gnat come looking for a place to lay egg, they I just broke a branch off of here. Oh well. Anyway, they fungus gnat try to lay eggs. They try to find place. They look at the sphagnum moss. It's dried up too dry. They won't lay eggs on it. So they just go elsewhere. So it's kind of like a masking effect on top of the plant pots to prevent fungus gnat from laying eggs. And at the same time, it's a good way to think of it as like some kind of mulch to keep the moisture of the pot inside the plant, so the water don't escape that quickly. All right, guys. All right, that's about it. That's how you pot it. And now you probably ask me, why didn't I not put fertilizer in there? Well, the slow release fertilizer, I put in there last year on the cutting mix. It's already in there, so I don't need to resupply with fertilizer. That's how you do it, and that's good to go. And just every initial repot, always give it a good watering, and then wait at least 2 weeks before you water it again. Okay? If you like it, please click like, and we'll see you next time.